Members, good afternoon. It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. The meeting will be concluded at 6:30 p.m. If needed, I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes max. I remind members that if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the topic of discussion today, please act in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure. Disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. I would like members to also note Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedures about the voting requirements with direct pecuniary interest. We are to handle 3 issues in relation to FCR 2023-2461. This item invites members to approve the creation of a new commitment of $2.286 million under Head 141 Government Secretariat Labor and Welfare Bureau Subhead 700 General Non-Recurrent for the implementation of the newborn baby bonus as announced in the 2023 policy address. The Labor and Welfare Bureau consulted the member or panel on manpower on the 21st of November 2023. To answer members' question, we have Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration, Mr. Chuck Wing-Hei, Assistant Director of Immigration, Ms. Yuan So-Ying, and Mr. Lawrence Yim, Chief Treasury Accountant from the Treasury. I will now invite the chairman of the panel on manpower, Mr. Chan Chen-Sing, to report on the discussion of the panel on manpower on the relevant issue. Chairman, on the 21st of November 2023, the panel of manpower hear from the administration about the fertility promotion initiatives as set out in the 2023 policy address promulgated by the Chief Executive, including the newborn baby bonus. Under the newborn baby bonus scheme, each eligible parent will be given a cash bonus of $20,000. The scheme will last for 3 years. Members participated in the discussion and general support the scheme, but they think that the administration should increase the amount of cash bonus to further promote fertility. The administration said that when they are rolling out the relevant measure, they have to take into account the financial burden on the Treasury. The newborn baby bonus is only one of the measures to promote fertility. The government has other measures in relation to housing, assisted fertility, and labor-related ones, including fostering support to working family in childbearing and to promote a family-friendly working environment. The government adopts a combination punches approach to create a childbearing-friendly environment and to send a message to members of the public that the government encourage fertility. Some members note that there is no rule under the scheme stipulating that eligible babies should be born in wedlock. They wonder what measures the government have to prevent the scheme from being abused. The administration said that not all people who give birth to babies are married. According to the birth registry statistics in 2022, babies born out of wedlock amount to about 10% of the total number of babies born. When the administration finds out ineligible cases, they will follow up. Thank you. Now I will invite the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration to walk us through the scheme. Thank you. Chairman, members, good afternoon. All countries and places worldwide are facing a decline in fertility rate. Hong Kong is no exception. Our birth rate remains at a low level. According to the 2023 birth rate of the world, Hong Kong birth rate is the lowest in the world. It's not even one of the lowest. Every woman only gives birth to 0.9 baby per year. The figures is lower than that of South Korea and Singapore. The government have to act on it. In the 2023 policy address consultation process, we received some comments and suggestions asking the government to roll out measures to boost fertility. Having made reference to the practice of other jurisdictions, we implement a series of measures that are listed out in paragraph 4A to K, including the newborn baby bonus. Eligible parents are given a newborn baby bonus of $20,000. Some members of the public think that this may not be as effective. But we did not start rolling out measures to boost fertility last year. We are only enhancing the measures. Apart from the newborn baby bonus, we also have other approaches to boost fertility. We adopt this combination punches approach to promote fertility. We are here to seek funding for the newborn baby bonus scheme so that each eligible parent will be given a one-off bonus of $20,000. The scheme will last 3 years. We need $2.286 billion of non-recurrent expenses to boost fertility in Hong Kong. We need the support of the members of the public. The incentives will affect the parents' decision. I hope that members will support the funding application so that we can send a message to parents of childbearing age that we encourage childbearing in Hong Kong so that we can maintain our population and driving force. Thank you. Thank you. Deputy Chief Secretary, there are 29 members who have pressed the button to speak. I will read out the order. There are some members who said that we don't have to allow each member 5 minutes to speak. So today I will allow 4 minutes for each member, including question and answer. I'll read out the order. Benson Luck, Johnny Ng, Chen Xiu-chong, Judy Chen, Kenneth Leung, Yong Hui-yan, Regina Ip, Lee Chen-kun, Tik Chi-yun, Lam Chen-sing, Lai Tong-kwok, Luk Chung-hong, Ngam Man-yu, Xiu Ka-fai, Adrian Ho, Michael Tian, Chen Xiu-hong, Lam Kin-fong, Chen Wing-kwan, Wong Kwok, Lee Wai-wan, Yang Wing-kit, Lau Chi-pan, Lam Man-kwan, Nixie Lam, Sari Lee, Eunice Young, Priscilla Leung, and So Chen Wing. Mr. Benson Look, thank you. 4 minutes, please. Thank you, Chairman. I have to declare interest. I am married, but I haven't given birth to any baby, so I may have indirect pecuniary interest or direct pecuniary interest. So you're only here to declare interest. You have nothing to ask, correct? No, I have some questions. The Chief Executive did explain this scheme, and the Deputy Chief Secretary gave us some figures. That is from 25th of October to 8 January this year, about 4,680 applications were received for the newborn baby bonus. So in 2024, it means that we will have 22,700 newborn in 2024. Comparing 2022, there were only 32,500 newborn baby. So we will have fewer newborn in 2024 compared with 2023. If we have fewer newborn after adopting the combination punches approach, will you consider other approaches, for example, by introducing a progressive child allowance or progressive newborn baby bonus? From paragraph 9 to 10, in terms of application procedures, the funding will be given to the sole account of either parent. Will you consider sending the bonus to joint account? Because most parents have joint account. Because if not, this may give rise to disputes between parents. So can we include joint bank account in the dissemination of bonus? 2 questions. Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. on the decline of birth rate from, well, will we introduce a progressive child allowance in terms of tax? This was suggested by other members on other occasions as well. And we have estimated that if we are to introduce this progressive child allowance, say for the first child we give a $150,000 allowance, that will give rise to a $4.2 billion of tax revenue foregone. This is a quite substantial amount, and we are suffering from a fiscal deficit this year. This $2.2 billion that we are seeking is not insignificant either. We have to take into account a series of factors. We can perhaps encourage enterprises to provide for flexible working hours. We should not just focus on financial incentives. Please observe the time limit. As for the application procedures, for CSSA, the subsidy is only disseminated to either of the couple. Dr. Johnny Ng, thank you. I speak in support of the proposal. I proposed a $10,000 baby bonus, but then some members of the public think that $20,000 is not enough. I disagree with that. Now, for a year, the government has to commit $300 million for the newborn baby bonus. Under this fiscal deficit we have, I think that this is quite substantial. This is just my view. No need for a reply. Mr. Chao Xiu-chung. Thank you, Chairman. I support the government's initiatives to promote fertility. That is why I will also support the funding application from the administration. Some grassroots families told me that they have to take into account their work stress before they decide to give birth to any baby. Will you consider increasing the paternity leaves to 7 days and provide flexible working hours to parents who need to take care of their babies? This is a policy issue. Because this is the first round, I will allow the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration to take the question. Mr. Chow asked us to increase the number of paternity leave days to 7. For enhancement of labor welfare, I think that the employer and employees should reach a consensus, and we have to balance the interest of different parties. We need to provide incentives for employers as well. For grassroots families, they want more support. We have laid out or set out the support measures provided by the government, for example, by increasing the child care center places. As for enterprises, if they provide facilitation measures to employees for childbearing, the expenses involved will be tax deductible.
No follow-up. Next, Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, Chair. We definitely support this funding application. The New People's Party, as early as 2 years ago, recognized the need to boost the birth rate. So 2 years ago, we made a written submission to the Financial Secretary in preparing the budget. This measure has come by 2 years late. Still, we support it. Deputy Chief Secretary, I'd like to invite him to clarify a number of things. In the first paragraph, it is said that in 2022, the birth rate in Hong Kong fell to a low point of mere 0.9. Now, this is what the English version says, the birth rate. But I think that the common terminology is fertility rate. So there's a difference in Chinese, and there is a difference as to how these two are calculated. In fact, for the Census and Statistics Department uses the term birth rate, meaning something else. In fact, the figure is 5% for birth rate. So I'd like the DCS to clarify whether we're referring to the birth rate or fertility rate. So it's fertility rate in English, right? Are you going to change the wording of the English version from birth rate to fertility rate? Well, if it deserves to be corrected, it will be done. So, a follow-up question about the CNSD's latest figure. Previously, it stood at 0.77, and then you quoted the figure in 2022. So in 2021, it was 0.77. 2022, it was 0.9. So has there been a slight increase in the fertility rate from 2021 and 2022? Yes, but in 2023, it fell again to 0.8. Right, so you addressed Ms. Chan's question already. Next, Mr. Kenneth Leung. I'm very happy to learn that the government has rolled out the newborn baby bonus. Again, I have a lot of concern because I am engaged in youth work. So a declining birth rate or fertility rates actually means that I will have fewer clients. So I thank the government for accepting the views and suggestions made by members. I have two questions. According to the administration, this is so-called a combination punches approach. So apart from the cash bonus of $20, there are different measures such as strengthening the number or increase the child care center places and strengthening the after-school care program. Some of these measures may be rolled out later. For after-school care program for pre-primary children, it's been 6 months since its launch. Still, it remains a pilot. When will it be regularized? Because if you talk about a combination punches approach, it means these measures should come in a package to boost birth rate. For the newborn baby bonus, it will run for 3 years. So how do you make sure that other measures will be put in place correspondingly and in a timely manner so that you can truly have a combination of punches? About the funding sought, that is $2.286 billion. I want to know whether administrative costs have been calculated. I don't see any details in the paper. DCS? After delivering the policy address, we explained in great detail during policy briefings to different panels this combination punches approach. For example, we're going to extend the after-school care program for pre-primary children to all districts. Now, we already made it clear that it will be fully implemented in 3 years. Now, there are different measures. Some will be rolled out in April, some in the middle of the year. As for this initiative, it will run for 3 years as a start. For administrative cost, I thought it's included in the paper. Anyway, annually, the cost involved is $800,000. Now we take a streamlined approach. When you apply for a birth certificate, you can fill in an application form for the bonus. You need to meet certain criteria. For example, the baby should be born after a certain date and the parent should be, or either parent should be a Hong Kong permanent resident. In fact, the Immigration Department has a list of babies born, say, in that month, and then it can be checked against the form. And once the application is approved, it will be sent to the Treasury, and instruction will be given to the relevant bank accounts for the money to be deposited in the applicant's account, supposing all the information provided is accurate. Ms. Eunice Yong, I support this application. Actually, my party proposed the newborn baby bonus. We interviewed some families. They are of the view that the cash bonus could help relieve their burden. There is an imminent need to take care of the newborn. They may need funds to buy health supplements or hire a help. And there are calls for the amount to be raised from $20,000. This initiative will run for 3 years. Is it appropriate timing to introduce this bonus? Of course, the answer is yes. In the last cycle, in the year of Dragon, 54,000 babies were born. That's in year 2000. And then in the previous cycle, 75,000 babies were born. So my question is, how do you assess whether your measure is effective in boosting the birth rate? Because according to your paper, you envisage a 20% growth in the number of babies born next year. So with the year of Dragon coming soon, there will be a baby boom. And how can you effectively assess whether indeed the birth rate has increased? DCS. Now, the member referred to the year of Dragon 12 and 24 years ago, respectively. In fact, in recent years, the birth rate has continued to decline. Some people believe in a baby boom in the year of Dragon, but we really cannot estimate the increase in birth rate for the coming cycle. Even if I give you a specific figure, that is an increase of 5 or 10%, it may not be realistic. So I'm quoting this figure, 20%. By simple math, this year, we are applying for 300 million. But judging from the current birth rate, there will be balance in the account. That means even if the $300 million are not sufficient, we are applying for $2.286 billion, which should be good for 3 years. If we want further funds, we'll apply for electrical again. I urge members to support us. Well, dividing by $20,000 per baby, we're talking about 114,300 newborns. If we have 39,000 babies born in a year, that means you will run out of funds. You will need to raise the amount. Right, I think DCS already explained that if need be, they will apply for funding again. Mrs. Regina Ip. I'm happy to learn that babies born out of wedlock will be included. I don't think there should be any discrimination. They should be eligible as well. Now, there are frequent travels to the Greater Bay Area. Let's say for a pregnant mother, what happens if she delivers the baby on the way back to Hong Kong, on the express rail link, or on the flight, but outside the territory of Hong Kong? Will there be any discretion? Even if the baby itself is not born within the territory, will the newborn cash bonus nevertheless be given? Yes, we have given it a thought. Under the mechanism, we put in this criterion that the baby should be born in Hong Kong. But let's say for an expectant mother traveling to and from the Greater Bay Area, and then the baby is born prematurely, then discretion will have to be exercised. The case will be referred to my office for consideration, so that everyone will see this happy ending. Mr. Lee Shen-kar. I welcome the government's initiative in encouraging childbearing. The government is taking this extra step. That means for twins, triplets, the eligible parent can get a cash bonus per the number of babies born. And the DCS also explained the streamlined procedures. Picking up on Ms. Eunice Young's question about the $2.286 billion commitment. Are you trying to err on the side of caution? Because you need to take into account the year of the dragon baby boom effect. And there is also the Top Talent Pass scheme. These talents may be applying for Hong Kong ID cards as well. Perhaps you should take a more optimistic approach in assessing the genuine needs. For Hong Kong permanent residents, there is a 7-year residency requirement. Does it mean that for talents under the Top Talent Pass scheme, they will be eligible for the newborn baby bonus as well? First question, how this is calculated. Second, any flexibility for non-Hong Kong permanent residents. Well, is the bonus per capita? That means regardless of whether twins or triplets are born. We've considered the 20% per year. So, like Ms. Eunice Young said, if you multiply the figure by 3 years, then each year you have 39,000 babies. Altogether, in 3 years, 114,300 babies. Now, we've also looked at the relevant arrangements in other Asian countries. Some come with a cash bonus, some with other incentives. There is at least a short-term effect. That means the decline will taper off, at least. Does it mean that there will be a drastic reverse of the trend such that we will run out of funds? We don't think so, but in this unlikely event, we will apply for further funding. 39,000 times 3 years, and that means times $20,000 per baby. That means you do need extra funding. I have an answer on the definition of Hong Kong permanent resident, please? Hong Kong permanent resident means that this citizen should meet the 7-year residency rule. We also considered whether Top Talent Pass scheme applicants are eligible, but they need to stay in Hong Kong for 7 years at least to become a permanent resident. The design of this initiative is that it only applies to Hong Kong permanent residents. For the TTPS talents, they're either high-income earners or those having high education attainments. Is it really a big incentive to offer a $20,000 cash bonus to them? And it's very difficult to track whether ultimately these talents would remain in Hong Kong. Having considered the above, we believe that we should confine the eligible applicants to Hong Kong permanent residents.
Dr. Teck Ji-yoon. Thank you, Chairman. I object to the item of newborn baby bonus. I asked my friends about the newborn baby bonus scheme, if they will give birth to any baby with the incentive. One of them said that they will give birth to a baby, but not because of the newborn baby bonus scheme. So I am doubtful as to whether the scheme will be effective in boosting fertility. Some people consider these $20,000 a red pocket money. With the fiscal deficit, the government is considering increasing the fees for public service. Can we afford the newborn baby bonus? Now the expenses on welfare is cut by $200 million. While we are handing out this $2.286 billion, if we don't give out these $2.2 billion, then we can pay or give welfare benefits for members of the public for 11 years. I will claim a division. Any response? Dr. Chick asked if their friends would give birth to any baby while we have this $20,000 to incentivize them. Well, actually, this newborn baby bonus is not the only measure that we have to boost fertility. We have a combination punches approach. If you refer to paragraph 4 of the paper, we have a series of measures including tax deductions and flat selection arrangement, priority arrangement for subsidized sale flat and public rental housing allocation respectively. Now, Dr. Tick asked why we are spending so much on the newborn baby bonus while we are having this fiscal deficit. During the policy consultation for the policy address, we received a lot of suggestions about this newborn baby bonus. You cannot compare the $2.2 billion of the newborn baby bonus to the welfare spending cut. So are we expecting there to be no financial incentives in the upcoming budget? I don't think that will be the case. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chun-sing. Thank you, Chairman. The administration said that they don't have any KPI. This is just a gift for parents who just gave birth to babies. But can we have, say, some surveys to assess the effectiveness of the scheme so that we can consider it when we are formulating policy to encourage childbearing, to encourage private enterprises to create a family-friendly environment. For civil servants who have received the newborn baby bonus, will you give them parental leave for, say, 10 days or give them flexible working hours so that they can take care of their parents? And by this, the government can serve as a role model for the private enterprises for the creation of family-friendly environment. On the 25th of October 2023, the babies who were born on or after that date, their parents are eligible to the newborn baby bonus. I think that until today, there are about 10,000 parents who are eligible. When they are applying for the newborn baby bonus, when the system is out, there could be overloading to the system because there's been so many system failures recently with government system. Have you looked at it? Thank you. Or looked into it? Thank you. All these three questions are relating to the policies of a family-friendly. Chief Secretary, please. Thank you. On quantifying the effectiveness, you asked why we don't have a KPI. We cannot force people to give birth to a baby. As for survey, I think the numbers will speak for themselves. We can just look at the number of babies born to assess the effectiveness. As for the family-friendly measures to be provided by the government, the Civil Service Bureau will consider it. As for parental leave or paternity leave, we give them in accordance with the law. As for the paternity leave, we have just added them. As for the system capacity, until yesterday, we received 5,600 applications. About 70% of them made the applications when they apply for birth certificates, and 30% of them made the applications online. So there will not be any system failure. Thank you. Mr. Lai Tong-kwok. I would like to ask about paragraph 6B of the paper. You said that either parent of the baby must be a Hong Kong permanent resident at the time of applicable. Why do you set the time not as the day on which the baby was born, but instead the time of application? There could be a 42 days discrepancy. If within those 42 days the parent can apply for the bonus via IM Smart, if they don't apply for the bonus within 42 days, they have to make the application in person. I wonder why that is. As for your second question, perhaps I invite our colleague from the Immigration Department to take that. As for the other question, about the wordings of the time of application, if we specify that the parent must be a Hong Kong permanent resident at the time when the baby was born, then problems could arise if the baby is born prematurely. We don't want any disputes. While we need to set a deadline, that is why we provide for some flexibility by stating the time of application on the eligibility criteria. Parents have to apply for birth certificate for the babies within 42 days of birth. If they don't apply for the certificate within 42 days, they need to pay a surcharge of some $100. The parent has to be a Hong Kong permanent resident at least 6 months after the baby is born. I hope that this scheme will help parents. As for your second question, as to why the parent cannot apply for newborn baby bonus online after 42 days of birth of the baby, Immigration Department, please. In accordance to Section 7 of the Birth Ordinance, all parents have to apply for birth registries within 42 days. If they don't apply for registration of birth, that parent will be in violation of the law and they are subject to penalty. If the parent does not apply for a birth certificate within 42 days, the parent have to meet with our officers so that we understand about the reason why they don't apply for a certificate of birth within 42 days. Around 95% of the parents actually apply for the birth certificate within 42 days of birth. Next, Mr. Luk Chung Hong. Thank you, Chairman. I speak in support of the newborn baby bonus scheme. This $20,000 is just a gift from the government to the parents. We do need a combination punches approach to boost fertility. The administration said that Hong Kong's fertility rate is the lowest in the world. Each woman of childbearing age only give birth to 0.8 baby per year. The government does have a series of measures, but most parents are actually wage earners. Parents have or people have to work long hours and they don't have time to make babies or take care of them. But I don't see any measures on, say, providing more leaves or the full maternity leave or full paid maternity leave. So I would like to ask the administration on promoting fertility. Will the government roll out measures on working hours and leaves to alleviate the burden of people? Otherwise, no matter how much of cash incentives you give to people, fertility rate cannot be boosted. Thank you. Policy issues, Chief Secretary for Administration or Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. You mentioned that most parents are employees and they work. We have 4 measures to encourage childbearing for working families. As for working hours, we will look into whether we can roll out measures on that front. But employers may object to such an initiative, and it may not be as effective to encourage people to give birth. For other countries, the maternity leave is very long. We need concrete measures to boost fertility. Mr. Luk asked us to explore more ways to encourage childbearing. We will look into that, but it's not an easy task. Chairman, we have a very low birth rate, and this is a serious issue. We have to take into account the interest of the commercial sector and businesses. The Deputy Chief Secretary said that there is significant cost involved. I think that the government should take a stance and be proactive. We have an aging population, and that will affect our economy.
Right, just a comment. Next, Dr. Menu. Thank you. Chairman, I have 2 questions. First, to pick up on what Mr. Loh Chung Hong said, the DCS replied by saying that the employers and employees will need to put their heads together in discussing different arrangements such as leave days, but at least for the civil service, the government can set a good example. For example, by introducing flexible work hours to encourage civil servants to become parents. And childcare centers can be established in government buildings to provide a childbearing friendly environment to civil servants. DCS, please give it a thought. Next, on KPIs, this is a way to gauge the effectiveness of the policy. Now, 2-3 years down the road, what KPIs will be used in assessing the effectiveness? For example, in deciding whether to extend this initiative. I think you've answered the question on the KPI DCS. What about flexi hours? Allowing civil servants flexible working hours. I will bring your view to the Secretary for Civil Service. On childcare centers, again, we can give it a thought. But just off the top of my head, for civil servants, many couples hire foreign domestic helper. Many of them have their parents to help with taking care of their child. So is it really necessary to set up childcare centers in government buildings? We need to be careful about allegations of favoring civil servants. About the question on KPI, I think I've answered that, so I'll just skip it. Next, Mr. Peter Show. Well, the government will provide the newborn baby bonus to encourage childbearing. I support that. This is exactly what Hong Kong needs. We need more babies. Are $20,000 attractive enough? I think I've added my views as well, and I learned about the situation of the public coffers. For the 3-year initiative, you're applying for $2.286 billion. According to your estimate, in 2024-25, the birth rate will increase by 20%. That means it will go from 32,500 to 39,000 newborns. What happens if this target is not met? If the targeted birth rate is not met, will the government strengthen the other initiatives? Will the amount be increased? At one point, we had 60,000 babies a year. So the target is a far cry from the peak. Will there be other measures to encourage childbearing? I think both questions have been asked about whether the bonus amount is enough, whether the funding will be sufficient. Yes, just very briefly, I will answer these questions again. In the first year, we may not be able to see instant results because for those applying in the first year, most of them would have been pregnant before the announcement in the policy address. We use the date of announcement as the effective date. And then we need to consider the response, whether it is well received, whether it is unexpectedly lukewarm. I think I've explained to Mr. Peter's show before. We're applying for $2.286 billion. If we increase the amount, that means we need to double the commitment to $4 billion. There is also a suggestion of giving the bonus up to 5 years. That means the amount of commitment will go up further. We need to consider the policy objective in the first place and devise corresponding measures. I still have time, DCS. We have low-income families, working parents. They deserve the support. Of course, we are not talking about supporting the wealthy parents. You should focus on helping those with financial hardship so that the financial factor will not get in the way of their childbearing decision. That is why I originally proposed dishing out bonus all the way until the child reaches the age of 6. Anyway, I support you, DCS, in encouraging more Hong Kong people to give birth. Right, this is a comment. Next, Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, Chairman. The New People's Party strongly supports this one-off newborn baby bonus of $20,000 in cash. We believe this is an effective stimulus. DCS, have you assessed the implications of this policy? Because the initiative covers unmarried parents. They are eligible for the $20,000 cash bonus as well. Do you think it will affect the decision of couples who are yet to be married in giving birth to a child? Will they have the means to raise the child? Will there be other social issues? Will there be more pressure on childcare centers? Because this will mean increase in public spending. Right. Other implications, including children born out of wedlock. DCS. Mr. Lam Shen Singh delivered the report on the deliberations of the panel. He mentioned how we looked at the issue. 10% of babies born in 2019 were babies born out of wedlock. That is not a significant percentage. Now, will this policy affect those not yet of age to give birth to children? I think we will refer these cases to law enforcement agencies. For children born out of wedlock, this is not really a prevailing trend in Hong Kong. I don't think this will pose an extra burden on childcare centers. I mean, for those who have yet to come of age 17 years old, you can't take law enforcement action on them. DCS, well, the objective of the policy is to encourage childbearing, so we should not differentiate between children born in or out of wedlock. The fact is, 1 out of 10 babies is born out of wedlock. That's all. We don't think they should be excluded from the initiative. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Chairman, you always remind us that this is the Finance Committee. We should stick on the dollar sign and refrain from asking about policy issues. So I'm going to ask questions on figures. I'm not really pessimistic about the birth rate or fertility rate. 53,000 babies were born in 2019, and then 2020, 43,000, 2021, 37,000 babies, and then 2022, 32,000 babies were born. In 2023, discounting all government measures, we will still have 32,000 babies. That means every year we had 6,000 or 4,000 babies fewer. and yet, despite not introducing any measure, there will be a zero difference from the previous years. We would still have 32,000 babies born. Now, you talked about other countries and how the declining birth rate reversed. When this was first announced, I staged my support. Well, you talk about the tapering decline. I am not going to support that. So about the combination punches approach covered by the $2.286 billion, let's see if the measure is effective. For the 4 places mentioned, the declining trend reversed. Can you tell me, in 2024, will we be able to register positive growth, say up by 5,000 or 10,000? It's a very difficult question. In fact, your so-called big boss has indoctrinated me with the idea of a result-oriented approach. So I'm keenly looking forward to the result. Can you tell me, next year, how many more births will we register? 5,000? 10,000? DCS. Well, I previously replied that out of 6 countries, 4 countries remained on the decline, and for the other 2, one of them had its birth rate slightly going up. The birth rate in Hong Kong is on continuous decline. Hong Kong is one of the regions with the lowest birth rate. If we're able to stop the declining trend, or if we're able to slow the declining trend, then it is still a good thing. No, DCS, by the end of this year, if you look at the actual number of babies born, we've stopped the decline because the number of babies born in 2023 was the same as that in 2022, despite not introducing the measure yet. Now, after dishing out money, can you tell me in 2024 how many more babies are expected to be born? That means the commitment will be able to cover 20% increase. That means how many more babies? Can you just tell me how many more babies? A head count, please. 32,000 babies, so 10%, 3,200. That means 20%. 20% means 6,000 more babies. So it's a jump from 32,000 to 38,000. All right, then I will support you. Next, Mr. Chen Sil-hong. Thank you, Chairman. The birth rate in Hong Kong has been on a continuous decline, so I support the newborn baby bonus so that eligible babies of newborn will be given a $20,000 cash bonus on a one-off basis as a token to encourage childbirth and reverse the declining trend of birth rate eventually. I think it is very difficult for DCS to answer the question as to how many more babies will be born. Apart from this token of $20,000 cash bonus, the government should do more, such as providing more childcare center places, increasing the number of paternity leave days, parental leave days. There should be a progressive calculation of child allowance, tax allowance, to provide more incentives for families to make this decision of having children. Now, Chairman, I prepared 6 to 7 questions. Some of them were already asked by others, so I'd just like to focus on 2 of them. First, on some figures, as of last week, the government received 4,682 eligible applications, and I'm happy to learn that according to paragraph 13 in the financial year 2024-25, it is expected that the number of births will increase by 20% as compared with that of 2022, approximately 32,500, representing some 39,000 newborns each year. I think that's the crux of the question put by another member. The member asked about the financial estimates. Well, I think it is necessary to prepare a set of estimates. I don't want to go by this misunderstanding that we should start with a 20% increase in the projection, and then the government will ask for further funding if necessary. At least the projection comes with a basis. That means if you never considered giving out the $20,000 cash bonus, would you say that naturally there would be a 15% increase in the number of births? And then with this extra incentive, there would be more babies born? Or is it that this baby bonus serves as an incentive, and regardless, a timely review will be conducted on this initiative as well as other measures. Also, I'd like to ask more about the $2.286 billion. Do you have a breakdown of the administrative costs? Does the government need to hire extra hands, or can the manpower needs be absorbed by respective departments? If the administrative costs are huge, that means the public will benefit less.
Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration, please. Let me answer the question on administrative cost. It's very low. We spent $80 million on administrative cost. Considering that the entire scheme cost $2.286 billion, we have hired a few more staff to input data. As for the 20% estimates, I have already answered that. Because time is up, I will not take that. I will not answer that right now. So how did you arrive at this 20% figure? Why is it not 15% or 25%? Chairman, that's my question. Chairman, will I be allowed to answer this question? Yes. We need to be confident in our scheme. We don't just look at the $20,000 incentive. I think that very few people will give birth to a baby just because of the $20,000 bonus. We have other incentives, including priority flat selection arrangement for subsidized sale flat and priority arrangement for public rental housing allocation. With these measures, families will spend less on rent, and that will encourage them to give birth to children. So how do we come up with this percentage? If we state that our target is an increase of 5% or 10%, then that may not justify the spending of the scheme. If we say that the birth rate will increase by 30 or 40%, that may not be as reasonable. So that is why we set the target as 20%. So you are confident with this 20% figure. Next, Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Chairman. The BPA and the business sector support the newborn baby bonus scheme. Some members suggest granting more leaves for parents. I disagree with that. Should the business sector be held responsible for people giving or not giving birth? I don't think so. Are $20,000 enough? I don't think so either. For a babysitter, it costs more than $20,000. There are different ways for us to encourage the business sector to provide family-friendly environment. Can the government perhaps ask for sponsorship from formula companies or conduct a lucky draw for winners of the draw? Parents are able to enjoy a 3-year free baby formula or diapers. The government can work out these measures with the business sector. DCS, these are policy questions. You can reply them in briefly. I think that Mr. Lam is not asking me to provide more leaves, but they are asking the government to come up with more creative ways to encourage childbearing. I will look into that. If the business sector can come up with ways to encourage childbearing, I would support that, but I think that they need government support as well. And I think that the government will be glad to support the business sector in terms of encouraging childbirth. No follow-up. Next, Professor Chang Wing Kwong. Thank you, Chairman. I 100% support the government's incentives to encourage childbearing. As for the newborn baby bonus scheme, I think that is just a form of bonus when people are considering whether or not to give birth to a child. They will not only look at the $20,000 bonus. So I would like to ask the administration, instead of spending $2.286 billion on the newborn baby bonus scheme, will you come up with other ways? I would like to ask what other incentives you have. We have a fiscal deficit. Should we spend so much money on this gift to parents? $2.286 billion will not be enough to cover the cost if we have a surge in the birth rate. When there is a surplus, after 3 years, how will the government process the remainder of the funding? The government wants to encourage childbearing, so why does the scheme only last 3 years? Will you regularize the scheme so that it will not be unfair to babies who are born after 24th of October 2026? Thank you. Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. We have other measures on top of the newborn baby bonus, including a priority flight selection and housing allocation. As for the impact of the scheme, if for the first year the number of baby born remain unchanged at 32,000, we have rolled out a lot of measures. We have made several breakthroughs in terms of policy. If we roll out these measures, we can perhaps reverse the birth rate. If not, then we don't stand a chance in reversing it. We may have more baby born in the year of dragon, but we cannot rely on luck alone. If the $2.286 billion is not enough. We will come back for more funding. However, if there is any funding left, then we will see if we will regularize it. The scheme only lasts 3 years because we want to look at the effectiveness. After spending so much resources on the scheme, if it is not effective, then we may not extend it. If we have a fiscal surplus by the end of the scheme, we may extend it. However, if it's not effective, then we may just suspend it. DCS, I'm asking if the money is spent well or right. You did not answer it. I think that the money is spent right because we've received a lot of proposals on this newborn baby bonus during the consultation of policy address. Members are concerned about the effectiveness. We all want to achieve this 20% increase in birth rate. Mr. Kingsley Wong, thank you. I support all these fertility promotion initiatives. Some members of the public visit Greater Bay Area cities for confinement or for resting. Mr. Sip asked whether they are eligible for baby bonus if they give birth on their way to Hong Kong. But we need policy or measures to prevent people who have emigrated to other places from enjoying the newborn baby bonus. Hong Kong is one of the cities in the Greater Bay Area. Should we allow people who ordinarily reside in Hong Kong to enjoy this newborn baby bonus even though the baby may be born in other cities of the Greater Bay Area? The government has a lot of fertility promotion initiatives. There are about 30,000 marriage, but pre-marriage counseling cases amount to about 2,000 only. Can we mandate premarital check for parents so that they can give birth to healthy baby? Thank you. Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration. Your first question about pregnant women giving birth to baby prematurely in other cities of the Greater Bay Area. We need to look at whether the pregnant woman is actually residing in other cities of the Greater Bay Area, or are they only taking a vacation there? There are some people who usually reside in other cities on the mainland. I'm talking about usual resident of Hong Kong, but they take vacations in other places and give birth to babies prematurely. If that's the case, we will exercise our discretion and disseminate the newborn baby bonus. As for premarital checkups, the hospital authority provides such services. As for quality childbirth, I wonder what that means. This could be a sensitive topic. Should we distinguish between quality childbirth and those that are not of quality?
咁就下一位係李維宏議員，唔該。
Next, Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Chairman. I support the newborn baby bonus and the funding application so as to implement the cash bonus as announced in the Policy Address 2023. Eligible parents of newborn will be given a one-off cash bonus of $20,000 for 3 years. I'd like to ask a question on paragraph 13 about the 20% increase in the number of births. In fact, the question has been asked, so I will not repeat. But DCS, I'd like to know whether scientific backing will be provided to convince us, whether you have scientific evidence to support this scheme. Now, the projection may not be accurate. You may be overly optimistic or vice versa. I'd like to know about the financial implications. If there is cost overrun in every project presented by every bureau and department, then we have a big problem here. Have you prepared the different scenarios in the best scenario and also the more likely scenarios? Right, DCS, I think it's clear that you project a 20% increase. Can you illustrate with examples how other places have also projected the 20% increase to convince members? Chairman, all I can say is that it is not important what kind of projections other jurisdictions have. Let me explain the 20% increase again. Is it a scientific projection? The answer is not. We have taken into account different factors. Are we being too optimistic? I think that the 20% increase is indeed a bit too optimistic. What about stress test and the best scenario? I don't quite catch the question, but let me explain whether there will be pressure on the public coffers. Of course, we have been given the go-ahead by the Financial Secretary. It should not pose extra burden on the public coffers. Now, perhaps the question is, what happens if we run out of funds? Will we apply for extra funds and thus pose a pressure on the public coffers? I'd say this is a happy problem if it happens this way. So that's your answer, DCS, right? Next, Mr. Kisenyang. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the administration for accepting the A4 Alliance suggestion of rolling out initiatives to promote childbearing. A cash bonus is also one of our suggestions, but I think that the $20,000 bonus is not sufficient. Now, according to my own calculation, the $20,000 will only cover 1 year of expenses on milk formulas and diapers. So the cash bonus will offer some relief. It is some kind of incentive, but not good enough. You should consider taking a progressive approach in dishing out incentives. Say, if you're able to give birth to a second child, you get more, and then perhaps $50,000 cash bonus can be given for parents of multiple children, which is also in line with the national strategy. Apart from the cash bonus, there are also other measures such as priority flat selection and PRH allocation. These measures are tailored for the lower and middle class. For the middle class in particular, can the eligible applicants get a waiver on paying stamp duty if they buy a property? Say if they give birth to 3 children when they buy a property, you can provide a waiver of stamp duty. This will be effective. You should not underestimate this idea, because ultimately the parents will need to pay not only for diaper and formula expenses, but also schooling. And after all, this will stimulate GDP growth. It will bring a lot of benefits to our economy. So DCS, I really don't mind if there is a cost overrun here. If you need to apply for further funding, I'll be happy to support you again. I think the first question has been asked. Second question about the middle class is a policy issue. DCS, perhaps you can take this question. About tax allowance, the middle class stands to benefit. There is also another policy for those using assisted reproductive service. All these benefit the middle class. I see I still have 1 minute left. Let me explain this to you. It seems that there is an impression that the government should take care of parents who'd like to give birth to a child. But we need to bear in mind that we need a critical mass of our population to keep the city going. As President Xi said, Hong Kong will only thrive if our young people thrive. If we don't even have young people here, how can we survive, let alone thrive? We should all be grateful to our parents for bringing us to the world, and I'm not trying to pass a moral judgment. Give our next generation a chance. Some people really dislike children, and I respect them, but otherwise do give it a thought. That's really deep, DCS. Professor Lau Chi-Pang, I support this newborn baby bonus. Now we have this application before us. At the Finance Committee meeting, we're supposed to discuss the dollar sign. For prospective parents, they need to balance the books, and the expenses would far exceed $20,000. That's the amount of the bonus. We also have parents to be here. From A to K, we can see how parents raise a child. Education is the crucial link. Child care center places after-school care program and home-based child care service. And then a child will go on to study in a primary, secondary school, and ultimately a university. Now, parents may be concerned about getting good schooling for their child. That means they want to get into elite schools. Usually, the names of these schools are really short. Apart from traditional elite schools, you want to get a place in the international schools, the UK-based or US-based education system, in other words. And the $20,000 will be far from covering the expenses. We should subsidize new parents for a number of years. Wouldn't it be better? I emphasize I support the bonus. Right, I think this is again an issue on the policy. Now, Professor Lau referred to schooling in the international schools, private schools. Are we able to cover the expenses? Even if we double the amount to $40,000, it will still be difficult to cover the expenses. Next, Mr. Lam Ming Kwong. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I support the newborn baby bonus. $20,000 will not be sufficient in stimulating the desire of people to become parents. Still, it will somewhat provide an incentive. So picking up on what other members said, some parents or parents-to-be may have planned for their babies to be born in Hong Kong, but then eventually the babies may be born in the Greater Bay Area. In fact, I led a delegation on a visit in the mainland. In some hospitals, they provide service for new mothers. With only several $100s a day, they can stay there and recuperate. In the application form, in the paper, you mentioned that the Immigration Department expects the baby to be born in Hong Kong and then they have all the information ready. What happens if more proof is needed? Say, ordinarily residing in Hong Kong, can you cite some examples for reference? Say, some parents who ordinarily reside in the mainland may claim that they want to come back to Hong Kong to deliver the baby. So can you explain that? Next, about the effectiveness. According to the paper, by next year, it is expected that the number of births will increase by 20%. Instead of looking at the actual head count, you're taking a combination punches approach. So when do you think is the appropriate time to review the effectiveness of the scheme? Apart from dishing out the cash bonus, you also need to implement different measures to help relieve the burden on new parents. So within the 3-year period, when exactly do you think it's appropriate to conduct an assessment? Let me take the latter question first. A review will definitely be conducted. The review will not be conducted at the very last minute of the 3-year period. It will be done in a timely manner. Will the review be conducted midway of the 3-year period or in the 2nd year? Now, I'm afraid I can't tell you a concrete answer now. We want to keep it flexible. In extreme circumstances, say if the scheme is poorly received, then a review may be conducted earlier, at least not in the 11th hour. For some, in fact, my office received some 200 inquiries. We are striving to save administrative costs. We don't want to set up an appeal board for the purpose. It's about dishing out the $20,000 cash bonus. an applicant can just write in via email explaining the situation, and we'll consider the case and give approval for the Treasury to transfer the amount.
還會盡量都係
The administration cost amount to only $80 million. While my salary is not included, I will absorb my own cost. I hope Mr. Lan's answer has been received or answered. Ms. Nixie Lam. Thank you, Chairman. I support the newborn baby bonus scheme. I've been following up on this scheme, and I was pregnant. I have my friends who are at a childbearing age, and they have given birth to some babies. My friends actually support this scheme as well. This is a happy bonus together with other fertility promotion initiatives. I think that this scheme will help or encourage people to give birth to baby, and the community is actively discussing whether they will give birth to another baby. I don't think anyone will give birth to baby just because of the bonus, but this has sparked some discussion in the community, and I think that alone is a good thing. $20,000 is definitely not enough. I don't think that any government in the world would cover all costs of child-rearing parents. The Year of Dragon is coming. In the last Year of Dragon or the cycle before that, the number of births increased. I know that there is a subsidy for assisted reproductive services. Some friends of mine actually requested for such services because of the subsidy. We understand that from 2024 to 25 and 2025 to 26, the estimated cash flow is about $780 million. Some people may want to intentionally give birth to baby in the Year of Dragon. So have you taken into account the Year of Dragon effect in your estimated cash flow? Apart from concrete support, we need a family-friendly environment or child-caring services, including other forms of support for children. When pregnant women were conducting assessment for their baby, they did not undergo the 221 assessment. As a result, the baby born was born with some kind of problems. I think that we should support pregnant women in undergoing assessment. I would mainly like to ask about the numbers of newborn in the Year of Dragon. Thank you. DCS, please. We have included a linear projection in our estimated cash flow. You can see in paragraph 13, if we have a surge in the number of newborns in the Year of Dragon, the cost can be covered by the cash flow in other years. If the entire funding is used up, we will come back to the committee for further funding application or allocation. This is a happy problem. I think we all welcome you're coming back to this committee to seek more funding. Ms. Chan Hoi-yen. Thank you, Chairman. About this $20,000, I consider it a red packet money. I support it and I welcome the scheme. I don't think that any reasonable parent would give birth to a baby just because of the $20,000 bonus. With this 1+10 combination punches approach, I think that this will encourage childbirth. That is why I support it. We cannot just rely on one measure alone. And we cannot solve it just by having the newborn baby bonus. We need other schemes and measures. For the $2.286 billion funding, I would like the administration to set aside some funding for publicity. We are of different generation, but I'm sure you've heard this song. 2 children are enough. I can memorize the entire song. I looked the song up and I figured that it was rolled out in 1975. I remember that song says that 2 children are enough. I'm sure most members have heard this song. We are to promote fertility nowadays. It seems that we don't have a song or any strong publicity campaigns to boost fertility. We need to send a message to all members of the public. You should encourage people to give birth to more children. I think that you should set aside some part of the funding of the $2.286 billion to come up with a classic song like the ones before, because the song that I mentioned just now was named one of the most successful government songs in history. Can we ask young people to write a song to promote fertility? I hope that you can set aside some funding to create such a song. DCS effective publicity is very important. Thank you. This is a great suggestion. Young people may not agree with our views, so I agree that we should engage young people in writing a song or coming up with publicity campaigns. We have not set aside any fees on publicity in this $2.286 billion. We can absorb such costs in the budget of the ISD. Please make sure that the publicity is an updated one. I hope that we can have good publicity. Thank you. Professor Leung, please. Thank you, Chairman. I remember the song mentioned by Ms. Chen Hoi-Yan. I can memorize the whole song as well. I've given birth to 2 children in 2 years. I think that we need 2 children to form a perfect family. That's because I remember the song. I married at a very late stage of my life, but despite that, I gave birth to 2 children. I asked around before I decided on whether or not to give birth. Everyone says that working women should either not give birth or give birth to 2 children. That is why I have 2 children. For the $20,000 bonus, I definitely support that. But middle-class families have a lot of worries. About 10 to 15 years ago, there was a celebrity who said that we need $4 million to raise a child. And that is very deterring to mothers. My mother is 93 years old and she is still volunteering. My mother worked very hard, and we all think that we should rely on ourselves. I tell my children that they should give birth because Hong Kong has the lowest birth rate in the world. Young people has a sense of mission. We should tell young people that it's meaningful to give birth because they have to sustain the human race. They should not be afraid of marriage or giving birth to children. Some people don't want to get married or give birth to children. They may not be incentivized by the $20,000. Some parents even give their children property if they are willing to give birth. I think that we can definitely support working mother. I think that there could be a matching fund in the business sector. Some electrical members are aiming at giving birth to 4 children. We should give them financial incentives and support. I think that ideology and changing the mindset of the young people is even more important than financial incentives. University students are worried about the responsibility that they have to bear after giving birth to children, and they are scared of getting married. I think that we should let people know that it's happy to have a traditional family and give birth. We should not allow these commercial advertisements on, say, it cost $6 million to raise a child, and I'm repulsed by those advertisements. I think that we should encourage the business sector to do matching exercise to encourage childbirth or child rearing. Thank you. This is just a comment. Would the DCS please note? Can I speak for a minute because this is a very important question? When I answered Mr. Young's question, I said similar things. This is quite a philosophical question. Let's not talk about the sustainability of the human race. Young people are the future of Hong Kong. If they don't give birth, then we don't have a future. We should not just rely on our parents, the society, or the government to take responsibility. I think that we should change the mindsets of our young people in terms of marriage and childbearing. This is an ideological issue. Government support measures will never be enough. Thank you. Dr. So Chun-Ming. Thank you, Chairman. I support the funding application. I have 2 questions. All these measures under the combination punches approach last only 3 years. If the newborn baby bonus scheme is effective, I'm sure that it will. If the birth rate increased by more than 20%, and if it's effective, will you still suspend the scheme after 3 years? People may choose to give birth because of the measures available. What if the birth rate increase and with the measures and then decrease sharply when the measures are rolled back? As to whether or not the $20,000 is sufficient, the Secretary said that people will not give birth just because of the $20,000 bonus. We need a combination punches approach. Some people jokingly said that they would give birth just to get the $20,000. It shows that many people are discussing giving birth to children, and I wonder if the measures under the combination punches approach are exhaustive. These are my two questions.
DCS. Thank you. I fully agree with Dr. So Chang-Wing that the focus of community discussion is on the $20,000 cash bonus. Now, there have been previous discussions. The government had always said no to the idea, and now $20,000 will be dispersed. So, of course, we'll step up publicity and make this known to the general public. This is just a 3-year scheme. We need to gauge its effectiveness. We need to have regard to the fiscal position of the government before deciding the way forward for the scheme. Is not the case that we have decided at this point that it will be wrapped up in 3 years' time. Well, if it's a sustainable scheme, then it will be better in terms of manpower and financial resource planning. Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Keung. Oh, Mr. Chan Hai Long. Thank you, Chairman. The Deputy Chief Secretary said in his reply that many applicants under the Top Talent Pass scheme are high-income earners, or they're either graduates from top universities. They may not care about the $20,000 bonus. I beg to differ. In fact, after the scheme has been announced, and at this point I need to declare that I'm the founder of the TTPS association. For new arrivals, they come to Hong Kong under various admission schemes such as Top Talent Pass schemes and the General Employment Policy, so on and so forth. And I have this case. This law student has written in to the government. According to the basic law, the baby born in Hong Kong to a permanent resident of Hong Kong is a permanent resident. Now, if the baby is a Hong Kong permanent resident, then why isn't it eligible? There should not be any discrimination against parents who are not permanent residents as long as the baby is born in Hong Kong. Now, about taxpayers, these new arrivals are also taxpayers in Hong Kong. There are many fiscal measures such as cash handouts. In the past, these schemes were only eligible. These schemes only applied to Hong Kong permanent residents. But recently, I see a change in the government stance for e-consumption vouchers. Those staying in Hong Kong who are not permanent residents will be eligible for half of the amount, and this is a good idea. Now, there is a reply from the DCS office. The eligibility criteria are set in such a manner as to benefit as many parents as possible. If you really want to encourage childbearing, there should not be any discrimination against arrivals who are not permanent residents. Now, at the Top Talent Pass Scheme Association's inauguration ceremony, the Deputy Chief Secretary delivered an opening remark. The Chief Executive, the speech of the Chief Executive attracted a lot of media attention. Now, for these incoming talents, they don't get the $20,000 cash bonus. I think this is unreasonable. For incoming talents and new arrivals not being permanent residents, there should not be any differentiation. Just a brief response from the DCS, please. I think this touches on another policy. On Top Talent Pass Scheme, the short answer is there is no discrimination. Mr. Shang would have known that I attended a ceremony of his association. It's a gathering with new arrivals. Now, after the baby has been born, the baby is a Hong Kong permanent resident. So despite the parents not being Hong Kong permanent residents, Mr. Shang suggests that the parents should also enjoy this right and be entitled to the cash bonus. I don't think this argument holds water. Let's say if this situation is applied to, say, applying for public housing, likewise, the applicants will not be entitled to these benefits simply because the baby is born in Hong Kong. I don't think the one-off cash bonus policy should be pegged to other policies such as public housing. I think it's right to give differential treatment for other policies, but not this one. Ms. Connie Lam. Well, it takes much more than $4 million to raise a child. According to some surveys, at least $6 million are needed. That means for newborns, $23,600 will be needed. I don't think the $20,000 cash bonus is sufficient. I am not a mother yet, but using simple math, I can see that the $20,000 will only be good for a year's expenses on either diapers or milk formula, but not both. While I support the newborn baby bonus, the objective is to keep people here, for them to start a family, for young people to see their future. So DCS, this is food for thought. Should we have a one-off bonus or otherwise? If you want to encourage young people to stay here and start a family, I think the policy should cover the period before they get married all the way to raising children. In 2026-27, the estimated cash flow is $455 million. And then in 2025-26, it is $780 million. So it's a 40% drop for the final financial year. Why is it so? In the first 3 years, each family will be given $20,000 for a newborn. When I paid home visits to some families, they are grieved. Some women have to give up their jobs to look after the children all the way until the children reach 5 years old. The women have to keep them fed and look after them, and they can only rejoin the market, the job market, when the child enters primary school. So the bonus should be offered to them all the way until the child reaches the age of 5. On top of the $2.286 billion, there should be bonuses offered to boost birth rates every year. Yes. Very briefly, the member suggests that more support should be given on top of the one-off newborn bonus. Well, if we pay out until the child reaches 5 years of age, that means 5 times the $2.286 billion. That will not be realistic. Now, the member also asked about the estimates. That means in 2025-26, $780 million of cash flow, and then a 40% drop that has to do with the cash flow situation in the final year. Ms. Elizabeth Quatts, I thank the government for taking up our suggestion to introduce a newborn baby bonus. It has always been the DAB's suggestion that more should be done to boost the birth rate. The government's previous stance was that it's a family decision to raise a child and there should not be meddling on the part of the government. Now the stance has changed, and on top of our suggestion, the government has agreed to provide $20,000 cash bonus. This policy has gained media traction. At least the government has shown sincerity in boosting the birth rate. It's worthy of our support. So, Chairman, I will support this application. In discussing this policy, one of the government officials said that if women are of childbearing age, they should try to make babies as early as possible. That sparked a backlash. Many women criticize this statement because they have their own career, and when they are prepared to start a family, it will be in their late 30s or 40s, and sometimes they may need to use assisted reproductive service. More should be done in this regard. Many young people nowadays do not want children, not even if you give them cash bonuses. Some women, however, are unable to have children. So you should increase the public quota for assisted reproductive services. You should also provide services for women to freeze their eggs so that when they are prepared to give birth, they can do so. Now, the government has given the green light to increasing the public service quota for assisted reproductive services. The public queue is 18 months long, and if you need to wait for 18 months, you will remain infertile. And if you visit a private clinic, you need to pay $200,000, and it is no guarantee that you will be pregnant. So many parents-to-be are deterred. Increasing the public service quota for assisted reproductive services will offer great help. I want to know exactly how many more quotas will be provided. A $20,000 bonus may not be a sufficient incentive, but I do have many friends, women friends in their 30s and 40s who would like to have children. What can be done to help them? This is a question not asked before. DCS, please. Ms. Elizabeth Quatts did not specify which government official. Of course, I know she's referring to Professor Lo Chung Mao. He is letting the science do the talk. It is true that in terms of human biology, a woman of childbearing age should give birth as early as possible for the sake of the health of herself and the baby. Policy-wise, we take a results-oriented approach. So subsidizing the freezing of eggs may be too far-fetched. We may not be able to see the results. As for increasing the public service quota, we are gradually going to increase the quota from 1,100 to 1,800. Even if you do not subsidize the freezing of eggs, you can extend the period to 10 years. This can help mothers-to-be.
Mr. Kenneth Lau. The United Nations promulgated figures on childbirth around the world. Hong Kong has the lowest birth rate. Now the government is giving this $20,000 newborn baby bonus along with other incentives to encourage people to give birth. I support them. This is just a form of incentive, but I think that this is a good start. If the government can continue to improve the measures that we have, that will encourage more babies to be born, I support these measures, and I hope that the government can regularize some of the measures or strengthen some of them. Thank you. Professor Ms. William Wong and Mr. Holden Chow and Ms. Nixie Lam would like to put more questions. I will draw the line here. We will proceed to voting after these three members have put their questions. Professor William Wong, the speaker is off mic. Am I coming through? I'm not asking policy questions. I would like to ask about paragraph 8 of the paper. It says that parents can go to post office to register for IM Smart Plus. I think that parents or people can register for IM Smart Plus using self-service kiosk. So why do they have to go to post office to register for IM Smart Plus for the bonus? This is for people who are not tech savvy. Those people may need assistance for registration. For those who know how to register online, they don't have to go to the post office. So why do you have to include this in the paragraph? Some people don't even know they can seek assistance at the post office. So we want to let people know that. That is not the focus of our paper. Professor Wong, people can register online and they can go to the post office. But if you put this registration at post office, people may misunderstand that they have to go to the post office to register. I think that the DCS has clarified that people can register as IM Smart Plus users online or a nearby post office. After Mr. Holden Chow and Ms. Nixie Lam have put their questions, we will proceed to voting as some members would like to claim division. We will do that after those two members have put their questions. Mr. Holden Chow, I have a comment. A lot of members are concerned about the projection of 20% increase of birth rates. DCS says that they are confident in reaching this 20% target. I think that this figure is important. But when you're seeking for funding in the future, you can include the ways you arrive at this 20% figure. Perhaps you can state the figures or statistics that you have referred to come up with the 20% number. That's my comment. You don't have to answer me. I support the scheme. Thank you. Mr. Yu Baklan. The speaker is not coming through. I support the newborn baby bonus scheme. I have some questions. You have received some 5,000 applications, if I heard you correctly. How many of the baby are firstborn or secondborn? Do you have any statistics on that? Is it more easy to encourage parents with one child to give birth to another, or is it easier to encourage family with no children to give birth to one? How many % of families are with one child, or how many % of families are with 2 or more children? Do you have any statistics? I think that families should either give birth to 2 children or none at all. I think that it's important for a child to have siblings. So I think that parents should either give birth to 2 or more or none. Perhaps we can have a progressive bonus. Perhaps it's easier for us to encourage family with one child to give birth to another. And we can give them more bonus. There are 2 questions. First, on statistics. In the application, we did not ask the parent to state how many children they have. As for how many families in Hong Kong are with 1 or more children, I don't have the relevant information at hand. But I'm not sure if the CNSD has it. We will ask them. They may have relevant data when they were conducting the census. Whether or not it's easier to encourage families to give birth to 1 more children when they have 1, or is it easier to encourage families who don't have children to give birth to 1? I don't have an answer. We need to balance different factors, and maybe we will increase the bonus when they give birth to another child. Chairman, I've not used up my time. I think that the administration should conduct some survey and collect these figures or data for you to come up with a more scientific figure. That's his comment. Now we come back to Mr. Dennis Leung, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I support this newborn baby bonus scheme and the funding allocation. Parent can apply for newborn baby bonus when they apply for the certificate of birth on the I Am Smart Plus mobile application. I was looking up the application procedures and the eligibility. I am unable to locate them. I can only get hold of such information by reading the policy address. I hope that the administration can put relevant information on your website, including the eligibility and the criteria of eligibility so that we can monitor the scheme. Also, some people have emigrated to other countries and they've stayed overseas 2 to 3 years, and because of the newborn baby bonus scheme, they choose to come back to Hong Kong and give birth to a baby, and then they leave Hong Kong afterwards. We do have relevant restrictions about the consumption voucher. Do we have similar ones for this newborn baby bonus scheme? Because some parents may deliver their baby in Hong Kong and get the $20,000 and then they leave. This is not conducive to the improvement of the decline in birth rate. BCS. I thought that we had already put up relevant information on our website. I may have to look into that. Parent can either apply for the bonus through birth registry or I Am Smart Plus mobile application. About 70% of these 5,000 applicants submit their application for newborn baby bonus when they are applying for birth certificates in birth registries. Should we provide for a list of criteria in eligibility criteria? Our criteria are very clear. The baby born has to be, the baby must be born in Hong Kong within the period from 25th of October 2023 to 24th October 2026, and either of the parent must be a Hong Kong permanent resident. I don't think that we should list out in eligibility criteria. We have thought about the issues of people who have emigrated to other countries and they may come back to Hong Kong to deliver the baby in order to get the bonus. We need the baby to be born in Hong Kong. If the parents deliberately try to give birth to their babies in Hong Kong despite the cost, I think that we have to give them the baby bonus because the baby will be a Hong Kong permanent resident eventually. Ms. Maggie Chan, please. Thank you, Chairman. I support the newborn baby bonus. I suggested this newborn baby rent package when I made my submission for the policy address in the consultation stage. I would like the administration to clarify eligible parent and its definition. If the parent gives birth to the baby and then emigrate to other cities or countries and they have no plan to come back to Hong Kong and they take out their MPF, that relates to the definition of ordinarily resident. The DCS said that they will consider cases independently. If the parent has emigrated, they are not ordinarily resident in Hong Kong. With the fiscal deficit, I think that the government should be stringent in terms of spending. They should only disperse newborn baby bonus to people who actually reside in Hong Kong. Have you considered including the criteria of ordinarily resident in the guidelines for appeal? Do you have any data showing or figures showing that some people have applied for the newborn baby bonus and then emigrated? Will you ask the applicant about their nationality or their place of residence in the application? When I'm talking about immigration, I'm not talking about Greater Bay Area. I'm talking about Western countries. Thank you.
DCS also on eligibility criteria. We want the scheme to be simple and easy to understand. We want the policy objective to be achieved, and that is for the newborns to stay in Hong Kong. Ms. Chan asked whether it's fair to dish out $20,000 to parents of newborn who will be emigrating soon. Our eligibility criteria are that the baby must be born in Hong Kong, and it is difficult to require an undertaking to be given that the parents must work or live in Hong Kong. For the Greater Bay Area, this can be achieved more easily. Say, if you've left for a long time, when you return, and if your child is born in Hong Kong, at the last minute, no bonus will be given. But you can make arrangements in advance for coming back and delivering the baby here. There is a so-called appeal. That means we will review the case. Now, the member asked about nationality. This is not our focus. Our focus is whether the applicant is a Hong Kong permanent resident. Next, Ms. Nexi Lam, 3 minutes. I didn't want another round, but Ms. Elizabeth Quat asked a question on assisted reproductive services, and having heard the Chief Secretary's reply, I want to ask a follow-up question. Ever since I announced that I actually conceived this child by assisted reproductive service, I have become an expert. Every week I receive a lot of inquiries from friends. Now, I can tell you that there is a big age bracket of women requiring this service. Of course, I would have liked to have a child as quickly as possible. In my 20s, perhaps, I had 3 boyfriends. I lost 3 babies before I got married. Before I had this one, I got married at the age of 41. It was not easy for me. That is why, having heard what Elizabeth Quat said, I wanted to ask this question. Some friends have told me that they don't want to get married or have children. For those who'd like to have children, more support should be given. Well, for the middle class, they have a lot at stake. They want to help us groom the pillars of society for the next generation. That is why I support the $20,000 cash bonus. I think that the fiscal position at the moment is not very viable for more to be done, but do give it a thought. More should be done to boost the assisted reproductive services. Right, this is just a comment. I will now put this paper to a vote. FCR 2024, paper number 62. The Mr. Dr. T.Chi Yun's claim the division. The bell will ring for 5 minutes. For paper number 61.
好，現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Members, please check your votes. The voting has closed. The voting result will be displayed. 70 present, 67 for, 1 against, 1 abstention. The proposal is endorsed. We now move on to the next one, FCR 2023-2462. This item invites members to approve the creation of a new commitment of $249,679,000 for acquiring information technology equipment and services for the 2026 population census and implementing a departmental data collection platform. At the meeting of the 4th of December 2023, the FSTB consulted the panel. To answer members' questions, we have in attendance from the administration Mr. Andrew Fan, Principal Assistant Secretary for FST, Mr. Liu Yu, Commissioner for Census and Statistics, Mr. Chow, Deputy Commissioner, Ms. Edith Chan, Assistant Commissioner, and Ms. Sharon Assistant Commissioner. Mr. Lee will now deliver the report of deliberations of the panel. Thank you, Chairman. At the meeting of the 4th of December 2023, the panel on financial services deliberated on the population census 2026. Members in general support submitting this proposal to the Finance Committee for consideration. Members discussed the items to be included in the census as well as the methodology, including the impact of the re-engineering exercise on the accuracy of the survey, as well as leveraging on district services to take forward population census among grassroots households and the use of innovation technology and the administrative data of the government. Members have suggested the administration to make greater use of the census to collect more and in-depth real-time population statistics to help with policy formulation and planning. Members are also concerned about the prevention of deception and mounting publicity. On cost estimates of the population census in 2026, members have requested the administration to set out in detail the impact on of the re-engineering measures on the overall cost and the breakdown cost of the population census in the FC paper. The administration has already responded to the questions and concerns expressed. We will adjourn this meeting at 6:30. 16 members would like to speak, so I will give each member 4 minutes. Professor Chen Kwong will kick us off. I am not from the IT sector. I am not tech savvy. I have this question for the administration. According to the paper in March 2019, $202 million were approved for procuring IT equipment and services for the census 2021 or 21C. My question is, why doesn't the government improve or enhance the equipment procured for the 2021 population census for the 26C, but rather procure new IT equipment and services again? What are the difficulties in deciding not to enhance the existing equipment and services? Why is there a need to procure new IT equipment and services for every population census? I understand there is a need to keep up with the technology, but at least for hardware, can we reuse some of them? For paragraph 4, for the integrated IT system, it will be used on supporting multimodal data collection work, comprising online questionnaires, telephone interviews, and face-to-face interviews, as well as data processing and dissemination work. I think that to spend $249 million on procuring this system is a bit on the high side. Is there room to suppress this amount? About recent digital blunders of the government, how will the government ensure that the 26C system will function normally?
位回答。
4 questions. Who will take the question? Commissioner for Census and Statistics, please. The IT equipment of the 26C will comprise of the equipment procured for 21C, including the sampling equipment and the statistics dissemination subsystem. We will enhance those of 21C and reuse them. But technology advances very quickly. 5 years has passed since the 21C. We need to update some of the software and hardware. Financial resources will have to be involved. We need outsourcing services for internet services and mobile services, system hosting, and so on, as well as training and consultancy fees. We need to engage these services for 26C. We also need to step up cybersecurity, including enhancing security measures and hiring independent IT consultant for monitoring and incident response support. For 26C, we will create a new data collection gateway for managing outsourced services and the online questionnaires, telephone interviews, and interviews conducted with mobile tablets. When we are designing this integrated IT system, we will provide for leeway so that it can be developed into a INT platform that can be used by CNSD that will support the 2031C and the future census. As for how we can prevent system failure, I believe that other members will put the question as well. There are some members who asked about their ranking. Now we'll have Johnny Ng, Chan Siu Chung, Chan Siu Hong, Michael Tian, Lam Chun Sing, Yan Winkit, So Chun Wing, Rock Chen, Carmen Khan, William Wan, Tony Che, Andrew Lam, Priscilla Leung, Chen Yong, Chen Han Pen, Yim Khan, and Yonghua Yan. Dr. Johnny Ng. Thank you, Chairman. The creation of the system is to complement with the Smart Government Initiative. I have some questions. We have more ways for people to report their data, including online questionnaires. So how will we be able to prevent deceivers from stealing personal information of members of the public? What has the government done about that? I would like to ask about expenditure. $249 million are involved, and about $3 million are spent on IT security. And you said that you will enhance training on privacy impact assessment and security awareness training. I would like to know more about that. That's my second question. It says in the paper that a consented data exchange gateway will be created to facilitate administrative data interchange. How much resources will be put into that? Commissioner, please. Deputy Commissioner will take the question about numbers. Let me first talk about how we can prevent scams from happening. Identity authentication is crucial. Quarters who will be subject to interviews will receive a letter stating the name and telephone number of the interviewers. When our interviewers reach their doors, the interviewers will carry with them their warrant card or identity card issued by the CN Census Department. When the household come across the interviewers, they can call us by dialing 182026 to verify the identity of the interviewer. We will step up publicity, and we will let members of the public know how they can differentiate between a real and a false interviewer. The CNSD does not have the phone number of each and every quarter. If households have registered for online questionnaires or they have provided us with their phone numbers by calling our hotline, then we can reach out to them. Our interviewers would not know their numbers automatically. Our phone numbers would definitely start with 182026. So that facilitates the members of the public's differentiation. If they have any questions, we encourage them to call our hotline. As for cybersecurity, we will conduct different testing. We have independent security risk assessment and audit. In the interest of time, please be brief. Dr. Ng asked two very straightforward questions. How much does the security awareness training cost, and how much does the consented data exchange gateway cost? As for training, $1.26 million will be involved. As for the creation of the consented data exchange gateway, will the Deputy Commissioner help me out? The cost of the consented data exchange gateway is very insignificant. We will redeploy our internal resources to absorb the cost. Next, Mr. Chao Xiu-chong. I would like to ask about paragraph 3 of the paper. It says that the CNSD will make use of administrative data of government bureaus and departments more extensively with a view to trimming some census questions. Can you tell us what kind of administrative data you will make use of, and how can you ensure that the results of the census will be scientific? In the paper submitted to the panel, it mentions that labor imported and talents admitted to Hong Kong under various schemes will be differentiated in the 26C. So I would like to ask how you will differentiate between people of these different backgrounds. Will you ask about their educational background? Will you ask about their salary and their jobs? 2 questions. Commissioner, please. About this administrative data, let me name some examples. We will make use of anonymized immigration data of the Immigration Department to project the population of Hong Kong. So that we don't have to conduct any short form questionnaires in 2031. when a full census should be held. We will also collect data from the Housing Bureau and the Social and Welfare Department. The Housing Department will have household data so that we don't have to ask these questions. As for Social and Welfare Department, they have data in relation to subsidy and the recipients, so we don't have to ask these questions in the questionnaires. As for the people who come to Hong Kong through different talent schemes or through importation of labor, we just have to put a question in the questionnaire asking how they stay in Hong Kong. We will be able to know about that. Because in the questionnaires, we will ask the interviewees about their educational background and so on. By that, we will know about the socio-economic characteristics of our population. Chairman, I would like to follow up. The data of the government may not be as scientific. How will you make sure that the data collected is representatives? Well, the data will be administrative data. I'm sure that they will be accurate. The data includes subsidy disbursed by the Social Welfare Department. That kind of figures, it's even more accurate than those collected through surveys. We will match those data with the data collected by through the census. When these two sets of data are matched, then we will be able to make use of that. Thank you. Mr. Chan Xiu-hong, the government plans to conduct the next population census in 2026. The data collection period will be extended to 1 year from 1.5 months previously. The government will develop an integrated information technology system that cost $249.679 million to support the re-engineering initiatives, and a consented data exchange gateway will be developed. Now, there's been a number of system failures of government services recently, and members of the public are also concerned about privacy of their data. We learned that in October last year, OGO put out a measure requesting that before implementation of large-scale system, a third-party consultant would need to be engaged to conduct a stress test on those systems. So I would like to ask if you have included the cost of such a requirement set out by the OGO, because I know that you will put in place some cybersecurity assessment. Have you set aside time for that? In Annex 2 of the paper, the government has done a cost and benefit analysis, which is very rare. I think that if the administration can provide for such a cost and benefit analysis in their future projects, it would be good. For non-recurrent expenditure, NCSC staff is involved. I think that with the digitalization of the process, the number of outsourced workers will be reduced.
頭先提到就係所
Two questions. We will follow all testing requirements. There will be sufficient time, and we have set aside budget for that. In developing the system, OGO has been providing us with a lot of support. They are very meticulous, including the independent testing. Is that right? Will the expenses be covered by OGO or by this project in one go? In fact, you explained this point to the panel on financial affairs before about the number of fieldwork enumerators. We have changed the methodology. Usually, we hired students on summer or teachers during the summer when they're on holiday to do the work, and as per previous experience, we hired 6,000 to 7,000 staff. Now we are extending the period from 1.5 months to 10 months. That means we need to hire contract staff spanning 10 months. About 200 such staffers will be recruited. Well, you can save manpower. You can save the number of people to be hired because the period will be extended from 1.5 months to 1 year. What about data analysis? Do you have data as to the manpower saved? How about explaining this in man days? Do you have information about the number of man days saved? Just in a broad brush. Overall speaking, the cost savings don't just come from IT, but also from other staff costs. More importantly, in the census year 2031, we will be able to save costs substantially. For 2026, we will capture only 1/10 of all quarters in Hong Kong. So combining 2026 and 2031, we can come up with a ballpark estimate. Altogether, we will be able to save $680 million. That's 40% of the total, as a rough estimate. Next, Mr. Michael Tian. Well, I don't need 4 minutes. Just Wednesday, the Secretary for ITI explained to us that whilst previously OJO would only provide advice, OJO will now do the actual work on top of giving advice. But here I don't see any representative of OJO attending this meeting. So does it mean that OJO will only give advice on this project and do nothing else? Or is it that they will do the actual testing themselves, since we don't have a representative from OJO here? If all OJO does is to give advice, then are there ways to prevent further blunders? We've seen a spate of blunders recently. So is it that OJO will just affix a stamp to prove the system and that's all? Alright, the question is how to prevent blunders and OJO's participation. The OJO has a high degree of participation in the process. Why don't we have anyone from OJO today, please? Why are they absent? If they do the actual work as well as giving advice. Well, please stop nitpicking. I don't think Mr. Yu will be able to answer your question. Now, on system development and design, we have a team of IT professionals. They come under the management of OJO. We have senior system managers and other managers. They actively take part in this project. And at the top level, we have the governing board, and that is the project's steering committee overseeing the process. I think members are concerned about the recent blunders. For the 2060 population census, an online platform will be used for the purpose of collecting questionnaires. In the past, all the work would be crammed within a 1.5-month period, so it was quite hard. Now, the data collection period has been extended to 1 year. This can help us cope with contingencies, such as the waiting room arrangement. Say, if there are too many users, some of the users will have to wait in the so-called waiting room. This can help prevent overloading of system. And we are very confident. Chairman, now I understand that their explanation. OGO will be giving advice as well as doing the real work, albeit in the back office. So in the future, when it comes to information technology, developing new platforms, will OGO representatives be sent to our meetings? We need to respect the administration's decision. For example, whether the department applying for funding will be able to resolve the issues on their own. If need be, they can also invite the OGO to come along and provide assistance. I don't think it's appropriate, however, for us to compel the attendance of OGO. 14 more members would like to speak, as I see it. If there are no other members coming in, I'd like to draw a line here. I will give each member 4 minutes. That's more or less the time I can give before I adjourn the meeting, even with an extension. Next, so I'll draw a line after Mr. Duncan Chiu has spoken. Mr. Lam Chin Sing. I'm concerned about cost saving and the saving of resources. You mentioned that only 200 contract interviewers will be employed. This is a far cry from thousands of workers being employed in previous exercises. So in terms of remuneration, how much savings are we talking about? In the past, the field workers would be assigned tablets. Some 6,000 tablets were used in the previous census, that is 2016 by census. Are the tablets still functioning well? Can't you donate them to grassroots families and students living in subdivided units? Since they cannot afford tablets, $74 million will be spent on contract staff. As per paragraph 12, what job positions are we talking about here? Are we mostly talking about non-civil service contract staff, I&T staff? In the I&T sector, there is a keen competition for talents. If the remunerations are not attractive enough, you won't be able to compete. And in replying to my oral question on the employment of IT staff, Professor Sun Dong admitted that there are difficulties. Is it possible to recruit retired civil servants? Are you concerned that if you're unable to recruit sufficient hands, there'll be a delay in developing the system? Assistant Commissioner can take the question on remuneration. I will take the first question. You've made a very good point. Apart from spending money on the computer system, every year we apply for government funding to take forward the census program. The funding is mostly spent on recruiting staff for data collection, remuneration, etc. The relevant expenditure items will be laid out in the financial years 2024-25 to 2028-29 budgets. I don't have the nitty-gritty here. Now, about recruiting manpower, because of a change in methodology, we only need some 300 tablets instead of thousands of them. These tablets will be used by our staff internally for data collection. And after the exercise, the tablets will be retained for our use. As you know, the data so collected will be integrated into a departmental data collection platform to be set up later. So for computers, tablets, servers, they will be reused. About staff costs, just very briefly, please, Assistant Commissioner. For the contract staff item, remuneration is offered according to the scale provided by OGO. Next, Mr. Kitson Yang. I'm concerned about costs. In 2019, $2 million, $220 million were spent. Now you're applying for funding of $249 million. So we're talking about an increase of $47 million. You need extra money to develop a new system. I get that. Still, you need to account for the drastic increase. Mr. Lam Chen Sing asked about the 6,000 tablets procured in the previous exercise. Now you only need 200 of them. Has technology advanced so rapidly? Why is it necessary to use new devices? Can't we use the old gadgets to do the same job? Another question. It's peculiar. 2.17 million users have signed up for I Am Smart. So why don't you use I Am Smart so that a questionnaire will pop up in the app for users to fill in? Why do you need an extra device and extra tools to develop a system? It costs over $200 million. 30% of our population, some 2.17 million, have signed up for I Am Smart. So you can just send them an e-form via I Am Smart to save resources. I find it strange that you are not consolidating the resources. Whilst I support the proposal, you need to explain these 2 points. Commissioner. The 26C, in terms of scale, is comparable to that for 2016 census. In 2016, by census, taking inflation into account, we're talking about some $130 million of funding. So that's a difference of $53 million. Now there are three differences. $32 million will be used for system development. We need to enhance the information technology system and the data collection platform. $30 million will be spent on recruiting contract staff from the IT sector for system design and analysis, management, and support for the year-long data collection exercise. $9.8 million will be spent on cloud hosting services and cybersecurity measures. So that accounts for the increase of some $50 million. And that's roughly the difference between 2016 by census and the upcoming exercise in 2016. For I Am Smart, these two systems are not compatible. I Am Smart is based on the use of ID cards. Is not so much a data collection platform. So for the purpose of collecting statistics, we do need to set up a separate system.
新至方便佢
Chairman, I don't quite understand. The design of the IM Smart application should be compatible with other applications of other departments. You have overrun. Can you let the Commissioner to elaborate on the IM Smart application? As far as I understand, IM Smart is a platform for a member of the public to access the platforms of other departments. The speaker is off mic. Mr. Kitson Yang, you have expressed your view when you were putting your question. The Commissioner has answered your question. The IM Smart application is not for population census. He has explained it very clearly. Next, Mr. Rock Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to look at this matter from a different perspective. In the $249 million, part of it is used for the consented data exchange gateway or the departmental data collection platform. Is the collection of data in compliance with the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance? I would like to clarify this point. Also, the data collection period lasts 1 year under the 2026 census. From 1st of January to 31st of October, there is inflow and outflow of population. Some people emigrate in the middle of the year, and some people may pass away. When the data collection period lasts 1 year, will it affect the consistency of the data to be collected? Thank you. As for the departmental data collection platform that you mentioned, that's a platform that falls under the CNSD. So there will not be a privacy issue. We are carrying out 30 regular surveys. We want to incorporate all these surveys into the departmental data collection platform. As for the period of data collection, it will last 1 year. The census reference is in the middle of the year. For the quarters that have been interviewed in the first half of the period, we have ways to identify quarters that will change their background or status in the latter half of the period. We have incorporated some screening questions asking for perhaps the interviewees whether they will move or whether their tenancy agreement will end in the middle of year, and we will ask if the interviewees are in their final year of study. So we will ask these or interview these quarters in the second half of the period, and we will make adjustment if necessary. That is a very good question put by Mr. Chang, and we attach importance to the accuracy of our data. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm not sure if I've heard you very correctly. For the departmental data collection platform, that is a platform of just the CNSD. No other departments are involved. If you're talking about the DCP, that is a platform of the CNSD. It's not a platform shared by all government departments. Next, Mr. Kaman Khan. Chairman, I was a member of the panel on financial affairs, so I have looked at the plan for the 2026 population census. The $249 million are for the departmental data collection platform and the re-engineering initiatives for the 2026 population census. Previously, we conduct a bi-census every 5 years and a full census every 10 years. Currently, starting from 2026, we will adopt a new ways to do population census. We will interview 1/10 of all quarters in Hong Kong. So we will no longer adopt the old ways of doing census. We will not be doing short form questionnaires with 9/10 of the quarters and do long term questionnaires with 1/10 of the quarters. Instead of 1.5 months, the government will collect data for an entire year. And the government said in the panel meeting that they will collect administrative data from other government departments. In other words, in 2026, the cost of the platform is $249 million, and the government has broken down the cost in terms of cash flow. From 2024 to 2030, they will save $250 million. In 2026, we will no longer be doing short form questionnaires. That is why we can save some $600 million by 2031. We have to spend about $250 million on the departmental data collection platform, DDCP. And this platform will be used in the future census after 2026. I'm not sure if I'm correct. In paragraph 9, it sets out the expected benefits, and it says that members of the public can make use of IM Smart. Instead of visiting members of the public and do questionnaires in person like the previous census, members of the public can log on to the IM Smart and fill out the online questionnaires. When members of the public are filling out the online questionnaire via the IM Smart application, that would go against the quarter basis of population census. Well, it's impossible for the commissioner to answer a question within 30 seconds. A simple answer, please. Ms. Khan's understanding is correct, but as for IM Smart, it will not be used for data collection. The IM Smart will be used for identity verification. After logging on to the IM Smart, the member of the public will have to fill out the questionnaire through our platform. So the IM Smart is just a gateway for them to access your platform, correct? Yes. Professor William Wong. Thank you, Chairman. This is exactly my question as well. We've spent a lot on creating this IM Smart, and I'm not sure if this is a silo application. This is not what we want to see. We want to integrate all the applications of different departments by having this IM Smart. IM Smart has all the personal information of a few million people of Hong Kong. Why don't you make use of this platform for people to fill out questionnaires? When you have this integrated IT system, can you not conduct population census more frequently? We can create some kind of dashboard so that people can get updates of what's going on in our community. Commissioner, please. the operation of IM Smart is different from that of our platform. IM Smart is just a platform for the login process and account registration. When people want to apply for licenses online, they don't have to fill out their personal particulars again by logging onto the IM Smart, because IM Smart already has their passport and identity card information, for example. So that will be conducive to the connection of personal particulars of members of the public among different departments. We need to ask about the latest status of quarters in Hong Kong, and we have to do a questionnaire before we can get hold of such information. We need to ask the quarters and people about their status or financial status and educational background, for example. You can answer the second question as to why can't you conduct population census every year. Well, substantial resources is involved in conducting a population census. Substantial manpower is involved, and financial commitment need to be put in. In some other countries, they do population census only once every 10 years. Chairman, I would like to go back to my first question. Say for a person who has visited a hospital, then IM Smart would have the relevant hospital or medical history of that person. Why do you have to ask that person again about the same kind of information? When we were approving the funding for the creation of IM Smart, we wanted there to be an integration of information stored in the records of different departments. If there's no other follow-up question, Mr. Tony Chair, please. Thank you. I, in principle, support the funding allocation. Population census is very important. But I would like the government to clarify a few points on the $250 million comparing to the $200 million in 2016. There is a discrepancy. And now you will implement a departmental data collection platform. And this DDCP will be used after the 26th census, and the platform may be upgraded and its scope of data collection may be expanded. So why don't you procure for this item independently? My second question. I would like the government to talk about the 21C. Apart from the $250 million of funding allocation, in the 21C, we had a $669 million of funding allocation on establishments of office for population census and recruitment of manpower. Can you explain these figures in detail? On cost saving, you have listed out the cash flow and some numbers. In paragraph 26 and paragraph 29, such figures are mentioned. Ms. Khan mentioned about the problems with cash flow. Can you briefly tell us how much has been saved?
標，一個就係
Right, bundled tendering and cost saving. I think that this question has been asked 3 times about consolidated tendering. Now we are proceeding with system development. But we have yet to start the tendering exercise. After we've successfully secured funding, we will proceed to tendering. As I mentioned just now, apart from information technology, in order to implement population census, we need to get resources to support manpower needs that will come from the budget. At this point, we're unable to give you the details. Chairman, I think there is a problem here. If this is done separately, there is no alternative but for us to support your proposal. That is the procurement proposal. I don't understand why resources for staffing would come from somewhere else. I think it should go with the procurement of hardware. Right? Why should the 2 sums come under different books? Who will take the question, please? Mr. Fan or anyone from the administration? Why are you applying for funding here for one thing and then the budget for another? And I think that they are not able to give you the concrete figures before the budget is announced. This is according to the established government procedures. This is an IT project. We apply for separate funding with the Finance Committee as a non-recurring expenditure. Yes, for the other item, it's a recurrent expenditure. Why can't you apply for funding after the budget has been announced then? Why not go the other way around? Please let them answer this question. Is it urgent? Yes, it is. We're extending the data collection period. At the same time, we're advancing it, actually. If you may recall that as per the usual practice, data collection will start in the middle of 2026, but now we are advancing it. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Paragraph 22 of the paper refers to 2 items. $182 million for enhancing the IT system, and then $67 million for the departmental data collection platform. But going back to paragraph 8, I become confused. Apart from the IT system, a brand new data collection platform will be developed to take forward population census. At the same time, it is said that there should be built-in flexibility to accommodate further expansion into the departmental data collection platform. It seems to me here that there are 2 platforms here. So for the $67 million stated in that paragraph, do you mean the first platform or the second one? And then paragraph 9E. After rolling out the platform, all the data collection process of all existing and new surveys were digitized. So what is the workflow? May I know how many data platforms there will be and how will they be connected? Right, let me first explain that a new data collection platform will be developed. This is for the 2026 population census. So we need to build a new platform for collecting data for the 26C. But this will form a basis on which there will be an expansion. There are about 30 regular surveys, as explained. Some are for businesses, enterprises. Some are for households, some are for pricing assessment. So we need sufficient flexibility of the system in order to support different surveys. So this is what the $67 million are about. Any follow-up, Mr. Lam? What about 9E? When will this platform be rolled out? Is it at the time of expansion or what? Well, we will need to use the system starting January 2026 in implementing 26C. So this new data collection platform will be in use by early 2026, but at the same time, the platform will be expanded for future development. This data platform will form the basis for covering some 30 surveys, which will be rolled out in phases. By 2029, basically, the platform will support all surveys. Now, I'm going to vote in support of this proposal, but then I do have this impression on reading the paper. I'm concerned that by 2026, when the actual census is conducted, it will still be paper-based, only that ultimately the subsequent processes will be digitalized. That's the feeling I get. I agree with Professor William Wong that I do have some grievances. I'm not happy with this project, but I support it. Professor Priscilla Leung, the purpose of the population census is to update demographic data. But then the public now have no confidence in the IT systems of the government, including the voter register containing the data of some 3.3 million voters, as well as what happened on a polling day when there was a system failure. In paragraph 3, it is said that administrative data will be used, and instead of having long-form questionnaires, you will go through a sampling scheme covering 1/10 of all quarters in Hong Kong. We need to catch up with IT development. Does it mean you will outsource the work? How are you going to have oversight? Will the government departments be able to develop the system themselves, or will you outsource the work? Thank you for the question. Of course, we are going to leverage on the private enterprises in developing the system, but they will have no access to any data collected in the census exercise. Only government staff will have access to such important data. Rest assured. We've seen a spate of technical failures, loss of important data, instances that happened in places not covered by the CCTV cameras. Now, I am from the legal profession. I don't believe in coincidences. If you're going to contract out the work, how will you ensure that they will be law-abiding? I mean, I don't know about government contracts. I think that sometimes they are drafted in quite a stupid manner. Will there be any declaration about national security if you allow these companies to have access to data? How do you ensure cybersecurity? For the contractors, they will sign standard government contracts under SOA QPS. That's a major scheme, the phase 5. So we're talking about major contractors taking up major government information technology projects. They are only responsible for developing the system. Meanwhile, we do have our own IT internal staff from OGO overseeing their work. The contractor will have no access to the census data. But we still see accidents despite rounds of review. Will there be extra safeguards to be introduced by OGO? Another member already mentioned this point. We're going to follow the latest set of guidelines. There will be independent audit, capacity testing. Do I have time to elaborate this reply? I think you already answered this question once. Priscilla Leung asked a very specific question, so I allowed you to have a go again. Next, Mr. Chen Yong, I think we all support the major direction of digitizing government services. It's all about perception. If everything goes smooth, you won't receive complaints. Now, my concern is this. The OGO may not undertake every project. If we want to do it better, quicker, and less costly, will you ask the government departments to develop new systems, or will you use the existing systems, or will new ones be developed? Because you can build on previous experience so as to achieve success. That way you can prevent recurring mistakes as you continuously improve yourselves. About the OGO, I'm not going to repeat this answer. I've answered that. About the companies to be engaged as contractors, we will engage contractors under the SOA QPS as approved by OGO, that is Standing Offer Agreement for Quality Professional Services. They have the expertise and experience in undertaking these projects. I think we will be able to achieve what we set out to achieve. I think Mr. Chen Yong refers to previous blunders, whether reviews have been conducted. Or how about lessons learned from previous blunders in making improvements? We will work closely with OGO and seek their advice. Next, Mr. Ben Chan. Thank you, Chairman. We need to collect statistics. Some government systems have failed, but it doesn't mean this one will fail as long as you stay vigilant. My question is this. Professor Chen Wing Kwong asked about the previous census, and hardware was procured. So there was an expenditure item for the procurement of hardware. Is there any way to reuse the hardware procured in the previous exercise to save costs? I understand that 6 IT subsystems will be developed and then consolidated into a new system. Can we make use of other existing hardware that has been procured? Can we develop a search engine? Can we make use of previously procured hardware? Because in the last round you applied for $200 million. This time round you have applied for $200 million again. Can we reduce the expenditure?
Commissioner, please. I've answered the question about the IT system. We will reuse it. As for hardware, they are redeployed for internal uses. We replaced the old CPUs. And we make use of the cloud infrastructural system. And after the census, we can downsize the capacity for the cloud services. We want to work on the DDCP in the 26C so that we can reuse it in the future. If we can develop the system into the DDCP, then we can make use of the same platform in the 2031 census. By then, we will not have to utilize such a substantial IT resources. But some services are one-off, including system hosting and communications and data lines. All these are procured for a specific exercise. But as for the amount of funding, we will have to determine that in 2031. Mr. Yim Kong, thank you. Many members asked about the cost saving, but I would like to ask about the savings in terms of manpower. Do you have any figures on the number of civil servants and outsourced workers that have been used or mobilized in the 2021 census? How many people will you mobilize for the 26 census? For the hardware procured in the last exercise, would it be reused in the government? If not, will you donate it to charitable organizations? As for the manpower saving, we have already answered that. As for the IT system question, that is similar to Mr. Jiban Chen's question. Commissioner, please. Because the manpower cost fall under the budget, I cannot elaborate on that any further as of right now. As for the IT hardware, I think you're asking if we will donate the mobile tablets to schools or charitable organizations. We will only deploy about 200 people to conduct the interviews, so we will keep all these 200 tablets within our department. For the future surveys that we will conduct, we will make use of the same practice, and that is why we will make use of these tablets and keep them in our department. As mentioned, we will leverage on cloud infrastructural services. We don't have to purchase new CPU. We just have to rent the capacity in terms of cloud services. We don't have to buy many hardware equipments. Ms. Eunice Hong. The funding for 2021 and 26 is not that different. In 21, where the government asked for $200 million, for 26, the government is asking $250 million. You are making use of similar systems like the one in 21C, including the register of quarters subsystem, sampling subsystem, and so on. You're only collecting data from 1/10 of all quarters in 26. In 21C, you have to visit subdivided units household within 1.5 months. Now in 26, you can collect data throughout a period of 1 year and you only have to interview 1/10 of all quarters in Hong Kong. And why is the cost increased in 26 compared to 21C? Why can't you add some subsystems to the 6 IT systems that you made use of in the 21C? Have you included some new technology in your systems? Commissioner, please. We can reuse some of the subsystems developed in 21C, but some years have passed. Certain software and hardware have become outdated and they need updating, and some systems have to be rewritten and updated, and resources are involved. As for data collection, we will come up with a more flexible platform so that we can expand it and transform it into an integrated platform for other surveys and the future population census conducted by our department, so that we can lower the cost of the census in the future. Karen, I don't understand. You don't have to collect data from a 9/10 of the quarters. The cost should go down. You just have to update the system and rewrite some of the coding. For the 21C, we started from scratch by creating all these systems. But for 26C, you are only upgrading all these systems. I don't see why you have to ask for $250 million to update all these systems. Commissioner, for the 21C, we were not developing the systems afresh. We also made use of the system carried forward from the 16C. That's the same for 26C. We will make use of existing resources if possible. We are only interviewing 1/10 of all quarters in Hong Kong. It does not mean that the workload is just 1/10 of that in the comparing to the previous census. As you all know, short form questionnaires comprise of only 10 questions. For long form questionnaires, it includes over 100 questions. So we cannot just compare the percentage of interviews with the costs directly. We need to have IT systems to support statistics analysis and dissemination. There are a few members who would like to put questions. Let me first extend the meeting by 15 minutes. We want to proceed to a vote within today. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you. In my student years, I participated as a field worker for the population census back then. I have to carry a card and I have to take a file to knock on to the doors of different households in Hip Wall Street of Kwun Tong and ask them to fill out the questionnaires. We cannot let the households to fill out the questionnaires on their own. At that time, I received some training before I was allowed to conduct surveys with interviewees or households. There was no security issues back then, so young field workers were able to just walk around and knock on the doors of different households. Nowadays, we have to pay extra attention to security of these workers. We have new tools for data collection and analysis. We have a rolling database. I fully understand all these things. So I believe that there is a reduction of workload in some areas, but we need data analysis. So I do support the funding application. I would like to know about the total cost of the census. As mentioned, we can only learn of the figure after the budget is announced. Can you tell us how much the last population census cost? You don't need to give us an accurate figure or exact figure. We want to know roughly how much we will have to spend for the 26C. Commissioner, please. For the 21C, for IT system, $200 million were spent. There are costs other than IT system, $500 million were spent. How much did the last census cost in total? $500 million. In money of the day prices. We don't know the cost for the 26C, but we will have a rough estimation. I think that the cost will be lower than the that of 21C because the scale is smaller. Next, Mr. Tan Kan Chiu. Thank you, Chairman. Some members are concerned about security issues. There will be third-party testing on the IT system after it is developed. Is the procurement for that test included in the major tender documents? It will be tendered or procured separately. For third-party testing, because the cost is not substantial, sometimes it's included in the main tenders. This is not ideal because if the tenderers are the one to do third-party testing, then they will engage someone that they're familiar with. As a result, no fault could be found. I think that OGO should undertake the third-party testing. I think that third-party testing should be procured separately in the future. And perhaps OGO can engage a regular tester so that the departments don't have to procure for third-party testing company independently. As for the data connection among different departments, I understand that I Am Smart is unable to offer data exchange services because of privacy issues and other problems. We may need to create a new system to connect the data of different departments. Should we store all data within a same platform? This is a discussion that we're having in the INT trade worldwide. If we consolidate all the data into one platform, then there could be risk of data exposure. Some jurisdictions put data of people in different pockets. Should we consolidate all forms of data in a single place? I think that that would give rise to some points of failure. I think that we should discuss it in detail. Very often when we come across such issues, we don't have the answer from OGO because they are not here in the meeting. Mr. Tian has raised a similar points, but as mentioned, we will try to ask the OGO to come, but the administration should be the one to make the decision.
下一位係張欣宇議員。
Next, Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you. I'd like to ask about some expenditure items here. Paragraph 12E, $81 million for
基本上就係揾出邊嘅服務承辦商嚟做。
for engaging a contractor for system implementation services and then recruiting contract staff, $74 million. So that means recruiting staff, $74 million coupled with engaging a contractor, $81 million. That's a staggering figure. Comparing to 2014-2019, in 2019 for the same expenditure item, some $38 million were spent, and then $23 million for supervising the contractor. In 2014, system development $18 million, and then supervision $25 million. You mentioned that from 2014 there have been price adjustments, but we're talking about a leap from $20 million to $70 million. I don't think you can explain that with price adjustments. Can you elaborate on this? Paragraph 17 refers to engaging contractor for system development and implementation. For paragraph 28 or 18, it's not about supervising the contractor. It's about acquisition of IT contract staff services for ourselves. Apart from supervising the contractor, our IT contract staff will also take part in system design and implementation. So this item is not just about spending a lot of money on supervising the contractor. Any follow-up question, Mr. Zhang? I compared figures in 2014-2019. It's a leap from $20 million to $70 million. Can we make this apple-to-apple comparison? Because Mr. Zhang mentioned some $23 million for contract staff, $38 million for engaging contractor, and then 2014, $18 million for contractor, $25 million for supervision. As my memory, if my memory serves me right, the money was spent mostly on supervising the contractor. This time round, we're recruiting contract staff for system implementation and design as well. That accounts for the increase in expenditure. But I checked the papers in those years, they were drafted in the same way. That means system implementation, enhancement, and monitoring the implementation services by contractors. My question is why there is a jump from $20 million to $70 million for the same kind of work. Taking price adjustment factor into account, can you further explain why there is a substantial increase? We're going to recruit contract staff in this exercise for system analysis and design. In the previous exercise, resources were mostly passed on to the contractor to do the job. We want to spend more on recruiting our staff so as to allow greater flexibility of the system as it will be further expanded to become the DDCP. We believe taking the development work on our own will fare better than letting the contractor do the same job. Right, so your explanation is that you're going to recruit more staff internally for system implementation. But at the same time, the speaker is not coming through. The mic is off. You heard what Mr. Zhang said. Anything else to add?
兩邊都多咗，佢嘅意思係8000幾萬嗰度。
So altogether, some $80 million. Well, there is now a more extensive application of information technology. More resources are required to enhance cybersecurity, for example. We also need to give an overhaul to the design of parts of the system, such as data collection. Well, either you recruit your own staff or you delegate this work to a contractor. We want to recruit staff to take up system design and data analysis. Once this is completed, we will engage a contractor to build an IT system. Well, before I drew the line, Mr. Tony Chair asked for a second round. I will only give 3 minutes to Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Chairman. Just to make a comment, we're going to approve this funding application of $250 million, not only for the purpose of procuring IT equipment and services. In 2012, $669 million was sought for manpower. You explained that this is a standing practice to ask for resources from the budget, and the details cannot be divulged at this moment. But definitely, this project will have to be taken forward by your staff. So what happens if we approve this project now, and then when the budget is announced, we then learn that it will take dozen $1 million to complete this work? Then how do you explain it away? You just gave an explanation that this is standing practice, but this is not a proper reason. If it doesn't work, you should change. I don't accept this explanation. And you can't explain the urgency. I asked about tendering, and you said that details have yet to be finalized. If that is the case, it's not that urgent at all. I don't support this funding application. Right, I will put FCR 2023-24, paper number 62, to a vote. Will those in favor please raise your hands? Those against, please raise your hands. 1, 2. I think members who have voted on the proposal are in favor of the proposal, so it's carried. Members, the next FC meeting will be held next Friday, the 26th of January. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.